This week was the week of SpaceX because SpaceX for the first time reported quarterly earnings. And it was quite the show because we learned a lot of things about this very amazing and very exciting stock. And just 2 days later, a huge amount of shares actually unlocked to become tradable in the market. So it was extremely interesting to see what would happen to SpaceX this week. And we covered it very closely in Pioneer Lands because this is one of the most exciting stocks to be potentially in, where I actually said, don't go in yet, wait what happens to actually see if this stock is ready to invest. So let's take a look. It also plays a major role for the greater AGI trajectory, for the build out of artificial intelligence, and for everything we do in Pioneer Land. So let's take a look what happened. The headline here for me was, number one, SpaceX actually delivered 1.4 gigawatts of compute readiness capacity with the ending of Q2, which was very surprising because we modeled it around 1 to 1.1 gigawatts. So they're ahead of schedule in terms of build out. And as you probably know, the build out of AI compute is the central bottleneck for the entire world right now. Everyone tries to get more compute. Everyone is rushing for any piece of compute they can get. We see it with Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Meta, all the hyperscalers. And Elon and his team at SpaceX are the best in building out giant data centers, but they're hitting that energy bottleneck problem. So looking at the energy build out is everything that counts. There's permitting problems. There's all kinds of issues that everyone faces. So 1.4 gigawatt compute, that's the big first headline. But the second big headline is that they said they can raise the outlook for 2026 to 2 gigawatt build out by year end. And then, and we are getting into that a little bit more in depth in a minute, over 5 gigawatts by end of 2027. We don't completely buy that. We think that's a little bit hyperbole by Elon because I don't actually see how they can get the permits for that. And maybe Elon knows more about it than he has shown us, or he's just exaggerating, which is what I think, especially if you go into his detailed statement. But we will also see that might not be as important as people think. So let's get into what SpaceX actually said. So 1.4 gigawatts, latest Grok leads is of course 4.5. The Grok model is iterating very quickly. We are expecting 4.6 of their frontier model Grok next week, and then 4.7 within the next month after, which is a rapid pace of improvement, which is because they have all that compute, even though they're leasing some of it out. Now, they also said they're hitting 12 million Starlink subscribers, not too much surprise here. They have 10,200 satellites in orbit, also not big surprise. 167 countries with coverage, basically all countries on Earth other than the ones that make it illegal to have free internet. And if you go into the details, revenue is up 92% year over year. AI revenue rose 247%, not too much of a surprise. We knew that, with new cloud agreements contributing 1.6 billion of incremental Q2 infrastructure revenue. That's not a lot, but it will actually ramp up very rapidly now. SpaceX signed another 6.7 billion cloud service contract after quarter end. The 6 months contract begins ramping in October. And then we had that important thing, 2 gigawatts of compute by year end 2026. Here you see that, that's very important. And end 2027, Elon said, the capacity will be closer to 10 gigawatts than to 5 gigawatts. I don't believe it's going to be even 5 gigawatts. Because if they grow it to 5 gigawatts, that would be already outrageously positive. When we look at how much money they make, they have roughly a $26 billion run rate just on a 500 megawatt lease. And that's not even leasing out the whole thing. That is including the stuff they're reserving for themselves, the compute they need for Grok and for their frontier model development and for inference, for everything. We estimate roughly about 50% will be leased out, but at a run rate of 26 billion for these roughly 500 megawatt they have, you can do the math right? If they scale this to 2 gigawatts by the end of the year, that would already be a revenue run rate of $100 billion just on compute lease out. That's crazy. And if they would double that again to 4 gigawatts, they would be a $200 billion revenue run rate for compute. Just very rough numbers. We have much more accurate numbers in the model, but just to give you an idea. So if you very, very back of the napkin, say 500 megawatts, make them 26 billion run rate in leases, in compute leases. They're ramping to 2 gigawatt end of the year, that's 100 billion. And then they ramp it to 4 gigawatt end of next year, that creates a run rate of $200 billion a year. That is nuts. Now getting to 4 gigawatts of compute is above what we had as a bull case, and we actually increased our bull case to 4 gigawatts based on these statements by management and also by Elon. So if Elon says it will be closer to 10 gigawatts than 5 gigawatts, you could make the bull case there might get to 4 gigawatts. But I'm still skeptical. That's why it's the bull case and not the base case. So SpaceX targets 20 gigawatts of power and cooling by end 2027. So that is, of course, that's also exaggerated, in my opinion, vastly exaggerated. When you look at how difficult it is to actually get this energy up, this is, in my opinion, completely exaggerated. But just to explain, they're assuming you have to build up more power than you have compute power for all the other stuff surrounding it. And Musk expects 15 gigawatts after delays. These figures cover power and cooling, not installed GPU producing revenue. So the core compute energy numbers here are the key. Hey, on this channel, we do something very important. We deeply analyze, understand, and predict capital, AGI, and politics. Not just to beat the markets and make a lot of money, even though that's important, but also to build a new society and make the future good for all of us, the pioneers. If you want to help me on this journey, you can do that by doing a very simple thing. Like and subscribe. It helps me a lot. Thank you so much for your support, and let's get back to the video. And as we will see later in the weekly brief, SpaceX also made clear statements on their commitment to NVIDIA as their exclusive provider for GPUs, which boosted NVIDIA's stock by a lot. We'll look into SpaceX stock in a second, but it boosted NVIDIA's stock by a lot because you can tell the amount of build out that's happening is crazy, and whoever becomes the supplier for that can be very lucky. At the same time, given the supply situation, SpaceX can also be very lucky having suppliers that guarantee them supplies. Micron, he called them out in a positive way on the Tesla earnings call. Elon said, thank you, Micron, for providing us with guarantees to get this high bandwidth memory. And he also said they are firmly committed exclusively to NVIDIA as their GPU provider. I think it's a mutual thing. So NVIDIA actually prioritizes them, which is very important for SpaceX. And then finally, SpaceX says new compute deployments pay back in less than 1 year. That is obvious, right? We cannot verify this from public data, but if that's true or not. But it's very clear that given the massive amounts of revenue and immediate huge contracts you can get, that this is a highly profitable business. So all in all, you see that here in Pioneer Lands, when we talk about SpaceX, there are lots of SpaceX fans and space geeks out there, and that is great. I love everyone. But we are focusing here really on the stock and the economics, because I believe, even though I'm highly supportive of the SpaceX mission to go to the moon, the Mars is a little bit, I don't care too much about the Mars, to be totally honest. I think that's a little bit a thing. I think if you can establish life on Mars, you can also establish life in deep space, because it's the same thing. The only thing that Mars offers you beyond deep space is materials, but you can find them in asteroids or moons. Mars is a very uninhabitable situation. You need basically complete protection of the human body in there. So it is only marginally better than the moon in terms of survival. And this long-term vision to turn Mars into like some planet that's Sure, maybe, but that will take thousands and thousands and thousands of years. So I'm not that interested right now in it. We have a lot to do on Earth, but I'm all for going to the moon. I'm all for going into space. So this is all great fantasies. I'm all for it. But when it comes to the stock, we have to understand stocks live off money. And the money is clearly not right now for the next 12 months and even 24 months. The real money is not in Starship. It's not in launching anything to space. The real money is in compute, in terrestrial compute build out. That is what will force the stock higher. That is the only thing that truly matters in the short term. And the only other thing that matters to the stock, the next phase that comes after in 2028 going forward, is Starship delivering AI compute satellites to relieve us from all these bottlenecks. So it is very important to watch Starship. It is very important to watch the AI satellite progress. That is the other big thing that matters. The third thing that might matter is Grok and enterprise AI, but that will be a messy, complex situation in terms of marketplace. There will be massive free models coming. Next year, they will absolutely grab massive market share. There will be neo clouds with Chinese models and open weights. So this will be a giant mess with trillions of dollars to make, of course. But it will be a tough battle for SpaceX. The not so tough battle is terrestrial compute build out, where they will absolutely win. And in a second sequence after, the whole space build out. That is why I have to watch Starship reusability for the second phase. And if they pull it all off and bring in massive terrestrial compute revenue, that will boost the stock a lot. And if they then, in parallel, can make Starship and the AI satellites work, prospectively in 2027, that will lift the stock even higher, because people will see when they hit these real limitations on terrestrial compute build out, the growth will definitely slow down massively, in my opinion, in 2028 to 2029 because of permitting problems. If they can then plug in that second sequence in space, the stock has no limits. And that's what we have to watch. Tactically short term, can they build out terrestrial compute like crazy over the next 2-3 years, while they are then fading in that crazy Starship AI satellite situation? That is the main thing of SpaceX. Grok and enterprise AI remains a potential joker when we talk about card games. The cards up their sleeve. We will see how this goes. So that is the situation. If you look at the stock, I called it out actually very accurately. That's why it's sometimes important. The weekly briefings are very important to give you the big overview, that what we are doing right now. But you have to also tune in with these important events daily, because I said right after, when we saw the drop after earnings here, it was totally irrational. The stock ran up 10% and then dropped 10%, basically 11%. After earnings, was very clear that this has had no big signal. But what we saw then on Thursday, that was the important thing, when there was a share unlock. Huge share unlock, 900 million. We will discuss it in a second more. Then we saw that the stock actually went up significantly from there. Here, I think 6% up. And then we saw a giant run on Friday. And I said on Thursday, dudes, this is the time. I think this thing has bottomed. And now that the unlock does not create a major drop, we will see a very rapid run up to 135. I literally said it. Did I know that the run up happens literally the next trading day? No. Did I put on a nice little chunky SpaceX position? Yes. So I was able to capture that nicely in Pioneer Alpha. Everyone who listened could also capture it nicely. But I also said, we will see selling pressure coming in at 135, around 135, 150, because all these shares that unlocked did not sell because they didn't like the share price. Now they will like the share price, and these early employees and investors will get out, in my opinion, at IPO price. So if I had to place a bet, which I'm doing a little bit, I think the stock will have a hard time quickly breaking through the 135 level, the IPO price, because now you will see selling pressure. All the people who want out and cash out, there will be resistance. Now, how long will this resistance last, and can the stock go higher? We have to see. But I think this gave us a tremendous signal. I will discuss it much more because we will watch the stock, and it's very important to understand these unlocks, the effects these unlocks have, and the information we got out of here. So that was the situation for SpaceX stock. Now in the weekly brief that we go into now, we will discuss a little bit the Pioneer Alpha investment update on SpaceX. So as you know, at Pioneer Lands, we are covering stocks, and SpaceX is one of our favorites. I will tell you more about the details here, how we actually change the model based on the earnings. We will look into the share unlock a little more in detail. We will look at SpaceX as a stock, what it does. We will look at NVIDIA's behavior this week, at Micron's behavior, and of course Tesla, and the big question if Tesla was correlated or not, and will be correlated or not with SpaceX, and what the whole situation there is. So let's jump right into it. To view the full brief, go to pioneerlands.org, and there you will find the weekly brief. And every week we are covering capital markets and your favorite AI stocks, including Tesla, SpaceX, and many other. You shouldn't miss that. Also in the weekly brief, by the way, we have a segment, AI Frontier, where we cover the latest in AI Frontier models, so we understand what the future brings. And we have a new segment, Politics, where we cover all the transformative things that are happening in the United States and Europe. So check it out. See you on Pioneer Lands.